What's up, guys? Phoenix here, and welcome back to today's episode of my big comfy couch. And on this what's up, guys? Phoenix here. This video is going to be a metagame oriented discussion, and it's something that I've discussed at length with quite a few people through my personal Facebook and stuff like that, and so it's something I ultimately just decided I wanted to make a video about and ultimately ask you guys your opinions as well that I would like to see in the comments down below. But basically, the topic of this video is Card of Demise ban-worthy? Is it too strong? In general, yada yada yada. Basically, I'm going to be giving my opinions on the card in general, and just ultimately just looking forward to feedback that I might get from you guys in the comments down below. But anyway, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Card of Demise is the normal spell card that says, draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. You cannot special summon this turn. You cannot deal damage for the rest of the turn after you activate the card, and then during the end phase, discard your entire hand. On paper, it looks incredibly balanced with, the no special summon restriction for the entirety of the turn. Your opponent can't take battle damage for the rest of the turn, and then at the end of the turn, you discard your entire hand, and unlike its anime counterpart, you do not draw 5 cards, you draw until you have 3. So, in terms of card design, at least it looks like they tried to make it a decent card, but I'm very much of the camp that Card of Demise as a card should not have been printed ever. I feel like that card was 100% something that should never have been unleashed upon the game, because its restrictions have ultimately just made the card into the degeneracy that it is. Now, if the card didn't restrict your special summons, and you had to discard your hand in the end phase, and you couldn't do damage for the rest of the turn, I think the card would have probably been a lot better off than it is actually now. Even though it would have been incredibly broken, and it would have definitely shifted the format and affected the format in a negative way, potentially, because it would have very much been, if you have it, you have it, if you don't, you don't, and it would have been, a card you could top deck while losing in combo decks, and you could play it and potentially, get back in the game. Now, you wouldn't be able to kill them that turn. It would basically be like a soul charge type card, where you could draw it, put yourself back in the game potentially when you're low on resources, and then do things like that. But ultimately, because the card is not accessible to combo decks because of that special summon clause, it has basically just been degenerated into just the support card for all of the brain dead decks of the format, in the form of just the floodgate decks, the suicide bomber decks, if you will, the decks that have no reason being in the format because the entire gimmick of the deck is to not let your opponent play, because the deck itself isn't strong enough to do that on its own and win on its own, so it plays things like floodgates and just bukus and bukus of back row that are all incredibly powerful, but you ultimately didn't have any way to maintain a constant, resource advantage in those matchups, because traps have been, statistically just worse than, combo decks in the past couple of years of the game. Traps have always been inferior to monsters that could also generate defensive lines, things of that nature. These have always been the trends in Yu-Gi-Oh! For the past 2 years, since about the mid 2014 range. That's been how this game has been progressing. So traps have just been kind of really falling out in terms of their relevance in the game. While they are still relevant, they're definitely not as relevant as they once used to be. Card of Demise changes all of that, and while some might look at that and say, oh, it's making traps more relevant, yay, that's healthy for the game, right? Not quite, considering that the decks that are playing this card are literally decks that are just only trying to flip floodgates on you and just absolutely just destroy you through the use of just free advantage that was not you didn't have to work for because of Card of Demise, just providing it for you. And that's a problem that the card inherently, its design flaw. Now, ultimately, I don't think there would definitely be a whole different slew of problems that the card would present to the format if that special summon clause was not included on the card. If it literally didn't say that you can't special summon for the turn, and then every deck could play the card, it would definitely affect the format in a negative, possibly negative way, in its own sort of way and area. But it would definitely even things out a bit to where the problem we'd be having with Card of Demise would not be the fact that these trap decks are playing it. The problem we'd be having with Card of Demise is that it's making every deck too good. But then again, it'd be a splashable draw 3 card for every deck. So I don't know if the problem would be as severe as it is now. But essentially, should Card of Demise be banned or hit in any way, shape, or form? I believe absolutely yes. Now, whether or not this card does get banned, limited, semi-limited, anything like that, or even hit at all, is definitely up to Konami's discretion, and the only things that would really affect this are whether or not Konami wanted to put Card of Demise as like a promo in some like obscure product somewhere on down the line, and that would basically ensure the card staying at 3 because they would want to sell that product, because Card of Demise is a very, very hot card right now in terms of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, you know, it's a card that says draw up to 3 cards. That's absolutely, obviously going to be good for some way or reason, but unfortunately the reason it is good is very just degenerative and just doesn't really support like the entire way the game has been progressing. Like, the game has been moving away from these traps, and now the only way that these trap decks are becoming relevant is by utilizing this card that gives you free advantage, and then also, like, the cards you're using with this card are cards like Floodgates that are literally saying, you can't do this action. That's a problem. Floodgates have always been a problem in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but they've always been, you know, relatively in check because you didn't have, you know, deck strategies that were based completely around them, or if you did, they weren't necessarily as consistent at getting to Floodgates, whereas if you were playing the combo deck, you were statistically more likely to win before they saw a Floodgate. But with Card of Demise in the picture, now you have, you know, them just having Potted Duality, Upstart, some people are even playing Into the Voids. There are multiple different ways to deck thin now, and then you deck thin your way all the way into a Card of Demise that literally just gives you more cards for free, lets you pick and choose which ones you're getting to, and that ultimately drives the statistics of you getting to those Floodgates incredibly up there, and that's a problem. But ultimately, I feel like Card of Demise should be banned or limited. I don't think semi-limited is going to be doing anything for it. I think the card would possibly actually be fine in a limited status, because the biggest problem I've been finding with Card of Demise is not necessarily the initial Card of Demise activation itself. It's the strongest thing about Card of Demise is the fact that you can use Card of Demise, and in the process of doing this, you can draw into dualities or another Card of Demise, and that duality could fetch you another Card of Demise later down the line. Mainly, resolving more than one Card of Demise in a game is the main problem that I see with the card. Just because you are able to resolve one each turn makes it so much easier for you to absolutely just win the game in an incredibly degenerative fashion, because as soon as you know you have that other one, if you Card of Demise into another Card of Demise and set it, along with 4 traps, you are in no way pressed for resources, and you are just going to throw every trap you can at every action your opponent does, whether or not Solemn Strike, Bottomless, Torrential, any of these cards. No matter how bad it might be in that situation, it doesn't matter. If you're 1-for-1ing or even taking -1s off these trap cards, but just stifling plays, that is fine for you because you are able to follow it up with another Card of Demise, and you know this. That's the main problem I see with Card of Demise, is being able to follow it up with a second or third copy of Card of Demise. I can't tell you how many times I've lost games to Card of Demise decks strictly because they had the second Card of Demise, and it had nothing to do with the fact that they had 5 back row. I was able to play through it in some way, shape, or form, but then they flipped another Card of Demise on the following turn, and I just lost from there because all of the resources I threw into simplifying the game state down to where their back row was gone, mostly, and I had, you know, only a few of the resources left that I had at the start of the turn, but I had resources. That entire thing just goes out the window as soon as your opponent resolves their second Card of Demise in a game. So I think the card definitely needs to either be banned or limited. I don't think semi-limited would do anything for the card except maybe just, all it would do is hurt how much the deck sees it, but it would still be, you know, a significant amount of the time. It would only cut the amount of time that you're opening the card by about 10%. Now, it would change the statistics of, you know, you following it up with a second Card of Demise very, very heavily, but still, it would give the option for that to be a thing, and that's something that I do not want to see. I feel like Card of Demise could easily exist in the game at 1, and these decks would just be heavily hindered by that. And it would definitely be like the case with Soul Charge, when Soul Charge went from 3 to 1. Decks, when Soul Charge was at 3, were built around Soul Charge. You built your deck to utilize Soul Charge to its full efficiency. But then, once Soul Charge went to 1, it was not reliable to build your deck around these strategies, and instead you built your deck to do what it could, the best it could, and then you splashed the 1 Soul Charge as just a sacky card to have, a recovery card, something like that. And I could easily see Card of Demise taking that approach in the future if Card of Demise went to 1. I could easily see that be the case. Like, you would still play Card of Demise in decks like, you know, Satel and any, like, back row heavy deck, like, say, if you wanted to play Gear or something like that, but it wouldn't be as heavily focused on Card of Demise as it currently is. I mean, it would definitely be hard to be, because you would have to play, like, triple Into the Void, Upstart Goblin, triple Duality, and then the one Card of Demise. And while that is 10 draw cards, and that is a quarter of your deck that is draw cards, and that, in theory, could be really good, it would still just be, you're trying to dig for this Card of Demise, you're trying to search for a limited card. You have cards like Left Arm Offering as well, but you can't set cards that turn, so it definitely just has a built-in restriction to where you wouldn't be able to utilize Card of Demise in that method. Like, there's all these different factors that would go into why I think Card of Demise would be fine at 1, but realistically, I would like to see the card banned. I think the card should not have even been printed. If it was printed, I feel like it should have been one of those cards like Card of Last Will or something that says, you know, this card can't be used in a duel. It's printed to be an anime collector's card only. And I feel like they should have done that with Card of Demise. I feel like they should have printed it with its original anime effect and just made it not playable. I mean, when you just implement a new effect on this card and actually just water it down, you're basically just not even doing anything to, like, honor its spirit of the show. Like, people wanted the card because of what it was in the show. People wanted nostalgia from the show and stuff like that. At the point that you made Card of Demise, you might as well have just made a new card and then printed Card of Demise as a card that could not have been played, because basically Card of Demise that we have right now is not the nostalgic Card of Demise from the show that people wanted for years to be a collector's item. Like, they wanted it because they wanted their last, like, one of their last Seto Kaiba cards that never got printed. Stuff like that. Overall, just little things like that. But yes, ultimately, I believe that Card of Demise is too powerful of a card in terms of what it does for degenerative strategies, and I don't really want to start theorizing on what Card of Demise would have done for the format had it not had a special summon restriction. But like I said, if that was the case, I feel like we wouldn't be having the problem we'd be having now, because definitely these Floodgate and, like, degenerative trap decks that Card of Demise is supporting right now would not be able to exist, because literally you'd be there playing your Card of Demise trap deck, cool, but then I'd be sitting on the other side of the table playing my Card of Demise combo deck, and I would throw every card I could at your trap cards, and then I'd follow it up with a Card of Demise after I blew my way through all your cards, and I would just draw into more resources. Like, we would have a much different problem. I don't know if it would negatively affect the format in any way. It would definitely make things a lot more RNG-based, because if one person drew it and one person didn't, that'd be a huge advantage over the other. But again, like, that's stuff I don't want to theorize about right now. I definitely don't want to theorize about that, because it's a hypothetical. It can never happen unless it was tested by someone who wanted to literally just build decks as if Card of Demise didn't say you can't special summon for the turn. There is that as an option as well. But ultimately, I do want to know what you guys think about Card of Demise and whether or not it's ban-worthy or not. If you think it's ban-worthy, if you even think it's good, if you think it's terrible as a card, all these things, I would like to know about it in the comments down below. Put your opinions there. I'm very interested in reading them. If you want to discuss amongst yourselves, go for it. I might even chime in if there's some points that I feel like need to be addressed that are not being talked about. But other than that, as I've already said, that's it for this video. If you want to support me, clicking ads on my videos and disabling ad block when you view my videos, it's the best way to do so. Helps me make money, and there's no reason to lie to you guys about that. And it just really shows your support and shows how much you like the stuff that I'm doing, and continues to ensure that I will keep making this sort of content if that's what you want to continue to see. And if you have an ad block enabled, if you want to take a few seconds out of your day, disable it, refresh the video, click an ad or two, then put the ad block back on when you're done. Like I said, takes seconds out of your day, takes no money out of your pocket, and helps me out a actual ton. And you'd have my eternal gratitude if that's something you want to take the time out of your day to do to show your overall support. But other than that, like I've already said for quite a few times, I'm curious of your opinions. Leave them in the comments down below. But other than that, that's it for this video. And as always, guys, take care.